All right, let's talk about science. You know, when you hear that word, what comes to mind? Probably test tubes, right? Thick textbooks, maybe some super complicated formulas. But what if I told you we've kind of been looking at it all wrong? Today, we are going on an adventure to rediscover what science really is.
And this quote, man, it just nails it. It completely flips the script on that old school view of science. See, it's not about memorizing a bunch of answers for a test. It's an open invitation, a challenge really, to join in on this massive quest for understanding. It's a call to action for all of us.
So, where do we start? Well, first things first, we've got to accept that invitation. Let's dive into this first part of our journey, which is all about completely reframing how we think about science.
Okay, look at this. On one side, you have what we think science is, a textbook full of facts, a collection of answers, just another subject in school. But on the other side, that's what it truly is, a journey of discovery, an ongoing process. It's not a subject, it's a way of seeing the world. It changes everything.
Now, to help us on this journey, our source gives us these two really cool symbols. First, you've got the butterfly. That represents your curiosity, right? Just fluttering around from one interesting thing to the next. And then you've got the paper plane. That's your imagination taking flight. And get this, that simple, everyday question, how does a paper plane actually fly? That's the same spark that led to the incredible science that gave us modern airplanes. It all kicks off with just a little bit of curiosity and imagination.
Okay, so we've accepted the invitation, we're ready for the adventure. But what do we pack? What's the essential gear for this kind of exploration? Well, it's not a compass or a map. The most important piece of equipment you need is the right mindset.
And this is it, the explorer's mindset. And here's the crazy part, it isn't about knowing all the answers. Nope, it's actually the complete opposite. It's about being totally okay with not knowing. It's about leaning into that curiosity, being open to whatever you find, and, you guessed it, asking those deeper questions.
So, what do I mean by deeper questions? Well, they usually boil down to these three big ones. See, it's easy to ask, what is that? But a real explorer, a real scientist asks, how does that work? And why does it happen that way? It's all about digging for the hidden mechanics, the patterns that are running the show behind the scenes. And you know, this way of thinking leads to something really important, because the more we discover about how our world works, the more we realize we have a part to play. When you start to see all the connections in nature, you can't help but feel a sense of responsibility to protect it, to build a more sustainable future for everyone.
All right, you ready for a whirlwind tour? Let's take a look at just how massive and interconnected this whole world of science really is. We're going to jump around a bit, so hang on tight.
We can start with something super simple, something you might have in your kitchen. Why are some fruits sour? Boom, that's a question about chemistry.
Okay, now let's wander into the living room. How do batteries actually make a lamp light up? Suddenly, we're talking physics, electricity, energy, all that good stuff. Now, let's zoom out, big picture. What happens when a glacier melts? The same ideas that explain why an ice cube melts in your drink are playing out on a planetary scale. We've just jumped into Earth science.
And for the grand finale, let's look up, way up. How does the moon create a solar eclipse? It's just a shadow, right? But now it's a shadow cast across worlds. Welcome to astronomy. You see how it's all linked?
And that is the key takeaway here. Physics, chemistry, biology, they aren't separate boxes. They're not just different chapters in a textbook. They're all just different ways of looking at the exact same, deeply connected universe. A breakthrough in one field can totally revolutionize another. I mean, think about it. Scientists figured out the chemistry of light right here on Earth, and that discovery is what allowed astronomers to look light years away and tell us what stars are made of. It's all one giant, amazing web.
Okay, this brings us to our final stop. And honestly, this might be the most important part of the entire journey. We're going to talk about mastering the art of the question.
And this quote just says it all. Great scientists don't just answer questions, they ask amazing ones. The real genius, the real game changer, isn't always having the answer. It's asking the question that nobody else even thought of asking.
So let's try a little thought experiment right now. I'm going to give you an answer. Ready? The answer is 42. Just sit with that for a second. 42.
See? This is the answer. But what's the question? That's the twist, isn't it?
We spend so much time hunting for the right answer that we forget that the truly creative part, the real work, is coming up with the right question in the first place.
And that's the whole point. The real task here, the real skill, is to come up with questions that are curious, creative, maybe even a little fun. Because at the end of the day, the quality of your questions is what determines the quality of your discoveries. It's that simple.
So, I'm going to leave you with one last challenge from our source material. Here's the answer. Just add some milk. Now, what's your question? Is it, how do I make my coffee taste better? Or maybe, what's the best way to eat this cereal? The possibilities are literally endless. And that feeling right there, that curiosity, that is the beginning of your very next scientific adventure. So go on, happy exploring.